After 20 Years is a short story written by William Sidney Porter, who is popularly known by his pen name, O. Henry. The story, After 20 Years, was first published in his anthology, The 4 Million, in 1906. The story revolves around two friends, Jimmy Wells and Bob. They grew up in New York as very close friends. They, however, chose different paths in their life. Bob leaves New York to go try his luck in the West, while Jimmy decides to stay in New York. But before they parted, they agreed to meet after 20 years, on the same day, at the restaurant where they last saw each other in order to asses who is more successful. The story opens with a cop walking around the empty streets of New York in the evening doing his patrolling. The cop then finds a man standing in the doorway of a hardware store. On inquiring, the unknown man tells the cop that he is waiting for an old friend, Jimmy Wells, who he had promised to meet at the very place 20 years ago before going west. While talking to the cop, the man lights his cigar, and in that brief light, the cop notices that the man has a pale face, a scar near his right eyebrow, and sharp eyes. The cop also notices the glint of a diamond on the man's scarf, which made him think that this man is rich. When he pulls out his diamond-studded watch to check the time, the cop comments that he must have done really well in the West. The man, then, boasts of how well he has fared and become successful in the West. The man assures the cop that, if his friend is alive, then he is definitely going to show up, and he wishes that his friend has succeeded in achieving at least half of what he has achieved. The cop then goes away and the man keeps waiting. After a few minutes, a man arrives and introduces himself as Jimmy. The man who was waiting for long is now revealed. He is Bob, who appears happy to find his friend. Bob notices that Jimmy has changed. In fact, he was taller than he remembered. In response to this, Jimmy says that he grew a bit after 20. Jimmy afterwards insists that since the old restaurant, where they had had their last meal together 20 years ago, is not there anymore, they should go to some other place to hang out. As they pass the street light, Bob looks at his friend's face, and says that, though 20 years can change a man, in many ways, but it rarely changes the shape of a man's nose. Bob becomes doubtful, and therefore, he asks the man next to him whether he is Jimmy or not. To this, the other man replies that he is not Jimmy, and that Bob has been under arrest for the past 10 minutes. He tells him to come with him quietly, and hands him a letter, which says,
"Bob, I was at the place on time. I saw the face of the man wanted by Chicago cops. I didn't want to arrest you myself. So I went and got another cop, and sent him to do the job. Jimmy."
In the letter, Jimmy explains that, when he arrived at the designated spot, and realized that his old friend, Bob, was the criminal that police were on the lookout for, he did not have the heart to arrest him. Instead, he sent a plainclothes officer to do so. The story ends with Bob reading the letter of Jimmy. The most interesting thing about the story is its irony. The irony is that the policeman who asked Bob what he was doing and why he was here is actually his friend, Jimmy. Bob couldn't recognize his friend initially, and went on explaining that he was waiting for friend. The irony is disclosed at the end. This is the characteristic of O. Henry's writings, that the ending of his short stories are often marked by a sudden turn, or a kind of shock, both to the characters and to the readers. His After 20 Years basically focuses on the reunion of two old friends, Jimmy and Bob. Through their brief encounter, the author explores the themes of friendship, loyalty, and trust. Friendship is at the heart of this story. Bob, in the story, seems to be genuinely enthusiastic about meeting his old friend, Jimmy. He speaks glowingly about what a great friend Jimmy was, and relates that he has traveled across the country, over 1,000 miles, to see him again. Bob's punctuality, in keeping his meeting with Jimmy, perhaps best demonstrates his loyalty to their friendship. Even Jimmy appears to respect their friendship. He turns up at the appointed time, to see his old friend, and finding that his friend must be arrested, he leaves, because he is emotionally incapable of performing the arrest himself. The story, however, does not throw light on the nature of the friendship between these two men. But it does present some implicit assumptions about friendship. For example, the power of friendship that can last for decades. The story also suggests that friendship can be powerful enough to make a criminal, like Bob, sentimental, as he takes risk to fulfill the promise he had made to his friend. Along with friendship comes duty and responsibility, which form an integral part of the story. There is perhaps no doubt that Jimmy loves his friend and respects their friendship. But his responsibility to the law takes precedence, and therefore, he arranges to have Bob arrested, though his emotional bond is still strong enough to prevent him from making the arrest himself. The note that he sends to Bob might not help a criminal understand a police officer's sense of civic duty, but it does show Bob that turning him in is not an easy decision for Jimmy. However, Jimmy's decision to turn his friend to the police does not negative or relegate his value for friendship. Nevertheless, this is a genuine ethical and moral question, which the author left unanswered. This is for today, and thanks for watching. If you find this helpful, please do like and subscribe.